Dear viewers and listeners, it is always a pleasure interacting with you. I'm Dr. Duncan Elliott Tembo. I'll be talking to you on a topic that I've entitled How to Operate a Fire Extinguisher. You will notice that it's slightly different from the topics that I usually cover, but I felt that it's important. You see, as I was driving this afternoon, I found an incident that had potential to result into serious property loss and even loss of life had we not reacted to that. This lady was driving, and at some point her car caught fire. She had a fire extinguisher with her. When she saw smoke coming from the bonnet, she was courageous enough. She opened the bonnet, picked the fire extinguisher from inside, and here she got it and quickly threw it in the bonnet and stood on the side waiting for the fire to be extinguished. I stopped together with others. We quickly pulled our fire extinguishers as well and stepped in to help. Yeah, you see, she tried her level best based on the knowledge that she had. The other two people who came to help as well tried, but initially they said that their fire extinguishers were not operating. But when I looked at the fire extinguishers, they were all in good state, and I noticed that even the other two did not know how to operate the fire extinguisher. And this is what motivated me to speak about how to operate a fire extinguisher. I felt that, look, as scientists, we are probably not doing much to help. You may wish to know that I'm a scientist. I'm a doctor of science. My master's degree was in science. My first degree, my diploma, were all in science. And I think I got touched and just felt, look, I think we need to make even just a small contribution. It may help somebody out there, or it may prevent the situation from becoming worse. I would like to just start off by, just giving probably a basic description of a fire. If you look at a fire at its basic, it is nothing but just a reaction between fuel, oxygen, and source of ignition combined in correct proportions. In other words, every time that you have a source of fuel, a source of ignition, and oxygen in correct proportion, you will get a reaction that we refer to as a fire. I must be quick to mention that, when we say fuel or source of fuel, it is any material that can burn. It may be wood, it may be paper, petrol itself, those gases that are flammable, All those are examples of fuel. When we speak about a source of ignition, it is anything that has got potential to raise the temperatures to points where burning would occur. It may be an already existing fire, friction, a candle, a lighter, mention it. And this is what constitutes a fire. But even more, having this basic understanding of what a fire is actually informs how you can put off a fire. To put off a fire or to extinguish a fire, it involves removing one or more of these three things that needs to be present for a fire to occur. Take away oxygen, the fire will not continue. Take away the source of fuel or change its properties, the fire will not continue. Even more, take away the source of ignition, you'd have extinguished the fire. And you will notice that actually, fire extinguishers are designed to operate in such a way that they will take out one or more, of these components that should be there for a fire to occur. I also want to just mention that, you see, when we say fire extinguisher, it's anything that can extinguish fire. Sand bucket is a fire extinguisher. Water is a fire extinguisher. But even more, you could also have, the portable fire extinguishers, which I'll be speaking about. And I know that for the portable fire extinguishers, we even have them in cars. We have them at home and in other areas. Before I focus on the portable fire extinguisher, I also want to mention that fires are classified. They are actually classified based on the fuel. You have probably heard about Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D type of fire. So let me just, quickly explain that. Depending on what is burning, the fuel, the fire will be classified, like I mentioned. So Class A, we are talking about, organic material burning. And that could be wood, that could be plastic, clothes, and so on and so forth. Class B is when the type of fuel is flammable liquid. So if petrol, diesel, kerosene is burning or is the source of fuel in that fire, then you can call that type of fire as Class B. Class C is when the fuel is a flammable gas. Class D is when the fuel is associated with electricity. So beware of that. Sometimes when you have a fire, even when you call for help, it's quite helpful to give a bit more information and say, okay, I suspect that the fuel is this, or I think that the fuel is this. It may help the people who are coming to, help to extinguish that fire. Now, returning to the portable fire extinguishers, like the one that I have in front of me. Like I mentioned, these portable fire extinguishers may be of different types. But the beautiful thing is, when you have a fire extinguisher, the name will be shown on that fire extinguisher. Obviously, in some countries, they've also gone further to standardize in terms of the colors. It's not the case for the one I have. But usually, the ones that are blue, okay, if this label is blue, that would be a DCP, or dry chemical powder fire extinguisher. If it is red, that would be a water fire extinguisher. And what that tells you is that, you know, the extinguishing agent is actually water. If it is yellow or cream, okay, if the label is yellow or cream, that would be foam fire extinguisher. If it is black, usually that would be carbon dioxide or CO2 fire extinguisher. But don't worry about the labels. I think what is important is that you should check the name. You should know the fire extinguisher that you have. That's number one. The second point is to understand what type of fires your fire extinguisher can be used on. In this case, this tells you A, B, C. And I'm just from explaining. If we say A, we are saying it can be used on class A, class B, and class C types of fire. So class A is where organic material is burning, like wood, paper, plastic, you know, and so on and so forth. B is where it's a flammable liquid. C is where it is a flammable gas. So you could use it on any of those. But even more, you know, there would usually be a picture, you know, that shows you the type, you know, what class A is, what class B is, what class C is. Second important point. Third is to ensure that even before you use the fire extinguisher, it is in a usable state. The quickest way to check is to look at the gauge. You know, this is a pressurized equipment. For it to work, or for the extinguishing agent to be discharged, pressure is required. That pressure should be within the operating range. And in this case, the needle should be in green. If the needle is in red on the lower side, that tells you that the pressure is low and it may not be able to discharge. If it is in red on the upper side, that tells you that the pressure is too much and there is a risk of the container exploding. Very important. But if it is in green, that's a good indication because the pressure is within the operating range. Further, with this understanding, you can now look at how do you operate it. You see, when you look at this fire extinguisher, it has got these handles, okay? But in between the handles, there is a pin, okay? I think you can see it well from the other side. So there is this pin. Now, this pin is there to prevent accidental discharge. For as long as the pin is in between, there is no chance that you know the fire extinguisher can accidentally discharge when you don't want it to discharge. And the pin would be secured by a seal, okay? As you can see here, this yellow seal, okay? It holds the pin in place, and the pin secures the handles. If you are to operate this fire extinguisher, I want to introduce you to a principle that we call PASS, P-A-S-S. P stands for pull the pin. Obviously, if you have a seal, you know, to pull the pin, you have to break the seal first. So when you just pull it up, it will cut, and you can easily pull, you know, the pin out. So the first P stands for pull the pin. So remove the pin, and immediately you take out the pin, it means that, the fire extinguisher is ready for operating. The A, okay, aim at the base of the fire. Okay, if you're going to fight a fire, position it such that it would discharge at the base of the fire. Don't shoot on the flames, but rather shoot at the point where those three, the fuel, the oxygen, and the source of ignition, are in contact. That's where you should aim to break that contact. That's why A stands for aim at the base of the fire. Don't aim in the flames. The first S is now squeeze the handles. So after you have broken the seal, you have pulled the pin, you have aimed at the base of the fire, you can now squeeze the handles. So immediately you squeeze the handles, the fire extinguisher will start discharging the extinguishing agent that it contains. Squeeze the handles. So when you squeeze the handles together, it will discharge. The last S is do it in a sweeping motion, and I'll tell you the reason. You see, if you just aim at one point, you disturb, at that point, but then on the other side, fire will be building up. So what you need to do is do it in a sweeping motion so that, all the points you disturb that contact. Okay? And that's very, very important. But you see, in the process of doing that, I would want to mention that even before you fight a fire, number one, your safety and the safety of the people is very key. Okay? So the first thing you do, make sure that you're safe, make sure that all the people have been moved to safety, then you can now focus on the fire. Number two, only fight a fire when it is in its incipient stage, or when it is still a baby, when you can handle it. If the fire has gotten out of control, don't attempt to fight a fire. Number three, even as you attempt to fight a fire, make sure that you have called for help. Okay, so call fire brigade. Let them know that there is a fire. Okay, that is very important. If it is in the house, ensure that as you attempt to fight a fire, position yourself such that the back is approaching the door and it's easier for you to go out in case the fire spread quickly. Also, before you fight a fire, understand what is burning. Like I said, some fires can spread very quickly. If it is such that it can spread very quickly, if it is such that, that fire will produce toxic substances, the best you can do is just look at your safety. Don't attempt that fire. Leave it for the experts. Like I mentioned, I was so much touched to witness that incident. The lady tried her best. She picked up the fire extinguisher, threw it in the bonnet. Obviously, the next thing that was going to happen is that the fire extinguisher would have exploded. Probably there would have even been more injuries apart from just losing the whole car. But yes, she tried what she could with the knowledge that she had. Then, like I said in conclusion, follow the past principle. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handles, and do it in a sweeping motion to break that contact. I hope you have gotten one or two things out of this session, and I hope that it should help you understand your fire extinguisher and even more how to operate it. I feel that it gives you good basics, but if you need more, please do not hesitate. You can send a comment, you can engage with me, and we can talk about firefighting, in greater depth. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.